All right, thank you for staying with the Monday Report. Before we get into the conversation, are you looking for a very fast, secure and reliable internet? Look no further than Safaricom Business, and I have it right here. You might be as happy as I. You know why? Because first of all, for just about 3,000 shillings, you could get free routers and installation and 10 Mbps. That's 10 megabytes. All you need to do is log on to www.business.safaricom.co.ke and find the amazing deals there. Kazi bila stress, they say, with secure fiber. If you're looking for fast and reliable internet, that's where you need to go. Then you'll smile like her, right? Brilliant. So let's have a different conversation here. Anti-Corruption and Ethics and Economics Crime Act. There is a proposal for deletion, not amendment, of Section 45, 2B and C. Now that section lays criminal culpability on the doorstep of any officer or any person who deliberately, knowingly or unknowingly flouts procurement laws. But there's a proposal to have that deleted. The proposal of that bill is with us here in studio tonight. Honorable Geoffrey Ruku, Member of Parliament from Mbeere North, thank you so much for making time. Judith Chamala is also here, Assistant Director, EACC, and also an advocate of the High Court. Asante sana for making time. And Diana Gishengo, National Coordinator, TISA, that is the Institute of Social Accountability. Honorable Ruku, I'll start with you on this. What is the thinking behind that proposal?
Thank you, Trevor, and thank you for this time. It is going to tell Kenyans that this act, the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act, was enacted in 2003. So we have 20 years from the time this act was enacted by the Parliament of Kenya. And therefore, this act has been in place for 20 years. And also it's important to tell Kenyans that it is pre-Constitution 2010 Act of Parliament. And therefore, there are quite a number of articles within this Act which are not completely in tandem with the written intent of the Constitution of the Republic of Kenya. Having said that, it is also important to scale up the war against corruption and more so against economic crimes. And it is clear the war against economic crimes in the Republic of Kenya has been completely undermined. And more so, the institution charged with this responsibility has failed Kenyans completely. And therefore, it is important for us to interrogate why is it that the institution which is charged or which is given the responsibility of fighting crimes, economic crimes, is not doing its job properly. Is it the law? Is it the people who are working there? Is it the political environment? What is it? And therefore, I'm trying to call Kenyans to have a very sober discussion, to look at the laws we have in place, whether they have assisted or they have negated the fight against corruption, and more so, the fight against economic crimes. For instance, I want to give you an example, Trevor. Many senior people in government have been constructing policies so that they can tailor policies in such a way that the policies can cause price distortion in major sectors of the economy, and they end up making millions of money, and none of those people have ever been prosecuted in any court of law. Economic crime is so serious, it's so grievous, it can massacre 1 million Kenyans within a second. Because we are talking about livelihood of Kenyans. So we have a very good Section 45(1) and also Section 45(2)(a), but Section 45(2)(b) introduces ones which lawyers can debate in any court of law. from morning to evening, and we lose resources because of the venations of some of the ones which are here.
So you think deleting them will make it stronger? Because many people are arguing that deleting the section...
The principle of law, Trevor...
C will make it...
The principle of law, Trevor, is that any act of parliament must be complete in itself. It must be complete in itself. For instance, section 2B, that complies with any law. You know, even in the Bible, the entire Bible is summarized in 10 commandments. We must have a complete act of parliament which does not give any room for a person who has committed corruption to escape. That is exactly what I'm trying to address. Because this section has enabled so many corrupt individuals, so many corrupt Kenyans to walk freely in this town, to be taken to court, and the case is dismissed in court, and they walk free and they enjoy their route.
So it's the one
I want to ensure that there is no Kenyan who, when you commit more so corruption, you'll be able to escape scot-free. But this section has enabled so many Kenyans to escape scot-free.
Make me understand.
And you know, Kenya, you know, Trevor, you have been in this country.
Yes, I understand
so many corruption cases have been lost in courts, have been dismissed in courts. At the moment, we have many people who are seeking damages for EACC to pay millions of money to these individuals.
But if that is your argument, Mheshimiwa, shouldn't you looking for amendments rather than deleting? You want, and let me just read out that part.
Trevor.
It's an officer or a person who willfully or carelessly fails to comply with any law or applicable procedures and guidelines relating to the procurement, allocation, sale or disposal of property, tendering of contracts, management of funds, or incurring of expenditure is guilty of an offense.
Trevor, if you read my bill, let me read it for you. Is that this act may be cited as the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crime Amendment Act 2022. Amendment, not deletion. And then amendment of section 45 of number 3 of 2023. I mean, sorry, not 2023, of 203. Okay? So I'm not deleting. I'm amending the law. I'm making the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act more stronger.
Okay.
So that it can be definitive. It can be precise.
Okay.
One of the responsibilities of National Assembly of the Parliament of Kenya is to give our courts, our judges, our magistrates, a precise law.
Okay.
Which can be effective in what we want to achieve as a nation.
All right.
We want to achieve a nation which is a corrupt-free nation.
Okay.
Where there is no economic crimes.
Okay.
And if you commit economic crime, you are sentenced to life sentence.
Okay. So what are you proposing?
I'm proposing, and that's what I've said, Article 2B of the Section 45. It negates the spirit of Article 45(1), where it goes up to D, as well as Article 2A.
Okay.
Okay.
Therefore,
those articles are very clear that they can be able to take someone if you commit these crimes. Because, Trevor,
therefore, what is
KRS to me, Trevor? What is KRS to me?
Yeah.
It may not be KRS to you. We'll be able to argue in court. Lawyers, I'm not a lawyer, but we'll be able to argue in court in terms of whether this is KRS or not, again and again. And we have cases which have been lost.
So what do you want done to 45(2)B and 45(2)C? I wanted to read as follows,
Trevor, that Section 45 of Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act is amended by deleting subsection 2 and substituting thereof with a foreign new subsection.
Okay.
An officer or person whose functions concerns administration, custody, management, receipt, or use of any part of public revenue or public property is guilty of an offense if the person fraudulently makes payment or excessive payment from the public revenue for the substandard and defective goods not supplied or not supplied in full, or services not rendered or not adequately rendered.
Okay. Shamala, will that help in the war against corruption?
Thank you, Trevor, for inviting me to cast some light on whatever Mheshimiwa is proposing. No, it will not. He has simply maintained and retained the same section 45(2)(a, the way it was. The only thing that he's proposing is to delete subsection 2b and c, but he doesn't want to come out clearly. He's still maintaining whatever was there before. But just before we go and deal with what Mheshimiwa is proposing, he has said that the Commission has failed Kenyans. I do not agree.
In a big way.
Now, one, if Kenyans can go to our website, because I know now Kenyans are enlightened, they can clearly see what we have done so far. We have recovered assets worth 26.65 billion for this country. Some are seen hospitals, schools, and they have been given back to the public. Funds that have been stolen have been returned back to consolidated fund. Really, if the EACC was not in existence, I don't know what we would have done. We have equally averted losses worth 135.9 billion. We've had 293 convictions. 141 were in the last 5 years. Now, coming back to what Mheshimiwa is saying, I want Kenyans to understand one thing. Procurement laws were put there for a reason, and that is why we have the Public Procurement and Disposal Act. Now, there are procedures that are supposed to be followed and rules. Why, Trevor, and the rest of the Kenyans? For purposes of making sure that there is accountability in the use of public resources. Yes, 45(1) is clear, and 45(2)(a) very clear. In what circumstances? In circumstances where we have had a award of tenders, but the goods are defective or substandard. 2, goods have not been supplied in full. And 3, the services are not being rendered. But the mischief in 2b is something different. This is the mens rea, where people sit willful and careless, failure to comply. People who are sitting in offices and coming up with a scheme to defraud Kenyans in the name of a procurement process. Or where you are awarding tenders, conflict of interest to your relatives, yet the law says do not do so, right? You skew a procurement, and a very, very close and very live case is the KEMSA case. You already have all the tender documents set out, the specifications are set out, but somebody somewhere decides to sit willfully and carelessly, knowingly. The mens rea is what this particular provision is about. Decides to skew it to favor someone they want. Why? So that they can give a benefit.
Yeah.
Now, when you look at C, where we are talking about engaging in a project without prior planning, we are talking about other acts like the Public Finance Act. We have, if you look at this, the specific sections that are there in the PPDA Act, the accounting officers are given responsibilities. Before you spend any coin from consolidated fund, please have a plan, have a budget, then incur the expense. If you don't do that, what happens? We lose money, and we are losing billions of money. Mheshimiwa has said this willful and careless, we will debate it in court 1,000,000 times and time over. But I'd like to correct him. This matter has been before court from 2003 when this act was enacted, and we have successfully convicted people. The current case is the Oswago case for IEBC, a case that nearly brought this country to its knees because of the procurement of the kits, the KIMS kit and the rest of the equipment. The other one was the Rebecca Nabutola case. They returned the money, they served their case, they even their sentence, they went on appeal, but the judge refused to reverse the sentence that had been given. If you look at Mary Ng'ethe, they just recently, when she was convicted of the cemetery case, she's still serving her sentence on willful failure. We have so many cases that are before court. We have had convictions based on this specific one. Why? Because economic crimes is all about a scheme. It's a plot to defraud public resources.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gishengo, you are part of the team that opposed Mheshimiwa's proposal. Why?
Trevor, the act that Mheshimiwa is proposing to amend is the anti-corruption and economic crimes. An economic crime is defined in Section 45, that he seeks to reduce and mutilate, purporting to seek clarity and protect public officers. Yet, the Public Procurement and Disposal of Assets Act protects those public officers who carry out procurement activities in good faith. They are indemnified. So why are we seeking to lower the threshold of economic crimes? These are crimes that are responsible for crippling this country. The EACC is happy that we have been able to recover billions, but we must recover more. It is the reasons we are paying taxes this painfully. It is the reason schools do not have capitation this year. All this is planned through procurement, where somebody is told, look the other side and allow us to help you sort this out. Yet because of the high threshold for public resources, straight from our constitution, we defined for ourselves what we must change to free this country from corruption. So whereas this particular piece of legislation was enacted in 2003, already this country had healed from corruption enough. This year we'll be celebrating the 20th anniversary since we acceded to the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, 20 years, okay? That is the anniversary of this particular legislation. It is an aspiration that we did not lower in our constitution. We took it a notch higher. So what we should be saying is strengthening of Section 45 to include new ways of scheming, okay? If, and I hope we had invited, say, the Public Procurement and Regulatory Authority, who are struggling because government agencies have refused to comply with a system that they have set up to streamline issues of procurement. Why? Because it is our weakest link. There are reports out there that a third of our corruption is through procurement. I don't think so. I think it is over 70% of our corruption and economic crimes are linked to the procurement process, okay? Which is choreographed, planned for meticulously. Even right now, as we pass this particular budget, there's a very high likelihood that we are planning for somebody, how they'll procure corruptly, make their money, and then we pay for them, okay? So if people go to these lengths of defrauding us and causing millions of Kenyans to suffer, shouldn't we seek to reinforce that particular clause? Where are we giving people waivers, yet they continue to violate us? So for that reason, we are very, very strongly opposed to this particular clause that seeks to negate what the definition of an economic crime in Kenya is.
Mheshimiwa, we have to take a quick break, commercial break. When you come back, I'll give you a chance to respond to both of them and address the issues that they have raised. And also we'll talk about Section 45(2)(c). That one is much more straightforward. An officer or a person who engages in a project without prior planning is guilty of an offense. What is wrong with that statement? We'll come back with that in just a bit. At Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya, use the hashtag Monday Report. We're back in just a second.